Finn's Pirate Quest, Treasure of the Thunder King, Chapter 1, The Stormy Night. The wind outside howled like a wild beast, shaking the windows of the little house where a boy named Finn lay cocooned in his bed, much like a sailor battened down in a creaking ship. His mum, soft as a whispering breeze and warm as a summer sunbeam, pulled the covers up to his chin, tucking him in as snugly as a treasure chest buried beneath a mountain of blankets. "Good night, my little dreamer," she murmured, her voice as sweet as the lull of a distant ocean. She pressed a kiss to his forehead, as gentle as the brush of a butterfly's wings. "No matter how loud the storm outside, you're safe and warm here. Close your eyes and let your imagination carry you to the most wonderful places." Finn tried to nod, though his heart pounded like a runaway cannonball. Beyond the windows, the sky growled with thunder, the sound rolling through the night like the growl of a dragon. His mom clicked off the light, and the shadows of his room stretched and swayed, bending under the glow of lightning flashing beyond the curtains. For a moment, the quiet tick of raindrops tapping on the roof was the only sound, like the gentle patter of feet on an ancient deck. Finn squeezed his eyes shut, hoping to drift into sleep as easily as a leaf floating on a calm sea. But the storm had other plans. A crack of thunder shattered the air, as loud and sharp as a whip, and light sliced through the darkness like the blade of a sword. Finn's eyes snapped open. The storm outside was no ordinary drizzle. It was a tempest, a roaring, snarling force of nature that seemed to shake the very bones of the house. The wind rattled the windows like the bars of a pirate's cage, and the trees outside bent and twisted like old sea serpents caught in a frenzy. And then, Finn felt it. His imagination stirring, rising like the tide in his chest. His room was no longer a room. It was a pirate ship, tossed on a stormy sea, the floorboards beneath him creaking, like the hull of a grand vessel battling against a raging ocean. His bed transformed into the deck of the ship, the blankets into worn, salt-stained sails snapping in the wind. The walls disappeared, replaced by an endless expanse of black water, churning and crashing in every direction. He wasn't just Finn anymore. No, now he was Captain Finn, the fearless commander of the Dreamer, a pirate ship as mighty as any that had ever sailed the seven seas. His pillow was a captain's hat, cocked at a jaunty angle, and his stuffed animals, once ordinary lifeless things, had become his loyal crew, standing tall and ready at their posts. "Hold steady, crew," Captain Finn bellowed, his voice booming as loud as the storm itself. His imaginary shipmates, his once cuddly, now ferocious, stuffed tiger, bear and rabbit, stood at the ready, their faces set in grim determination. "We sail through the storm to the greatest treasure in the world." The wind shrieked, tearing at the sails, and the sea heaved beneath the ship as if trying to swallow it whole. But Captain Finn grinned, a grin as wide as the horizon, his heart thundering in time with the storm. This was no ordinary storm. It was a challenge, a test of his bravery and skill. And Captain Finn wasn't afraid. No storm could sink his ship, and no force of nature could stand in the way of the adventure that awaited him. The lightning flashed like the spark of a cannon, and the thunder roared like the angry bellow of a sea monster deep below. But to Captain Finn, it was music, the song of the storm, the soundtrack of adventure calling him forward. And so, with his heart as full as the sails of his ship, Captain Finn steered the Dreamer into the teeth of the storm, ready to face whatever the night had in store. Chapter 2. Setting Sail on the Midnight Sea. The storm outside thrashed against the house like a wild beast trying to break free. But inside Finn's mind, the dreamer cut through the ocean like a blade slicing through silk. The waves were monstrous, rising up as if the sea itself were reaching to pull him under. But Captain Finn held the ship's wheel tight, his knuckles white as pearls, his heart thrumming like the beat of a distant war drum. The ship groaned under the weight of the storm, its mast creaking like the spine of an ancient sea creature. But it was no match for Captain Finn's resolve. His crew, brave, loyal, and stitched together with cotton and imagination, stood at attention, their eyes as sharp as harpoons. The stuffed tiger, now a fierce first mate, paced the deck, its tail flicking like a whip of determination. The rabbit, soft fur, now gleaming with the shimmer of a pirate's tunic, manned the sails, pulling them taut against the ferocious wind. Above, the sky was a swirling cauldron of black clouds, boiling with fury, and lightning slashed through it like jagged claws tearing the heavens apart. The rain came down in sheets, drumming against the deck like the pounding of 1,000 fists. But Captain Finn only grinned wider. This was no ordinary storm. It was a tempest, conjured by the mysteries of the midnight sea. "Steady as she goes," he called, his voice cutting through the chaos like a captain's call to arms. His feet were planted firm on the rocking deck, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the storm cloud churned and twisted like a living thing, hungry for adventure. Through the fury of the storm, Captain Finn could just make out something glinting far off in the distance. An island shrouded in mist and mystery, its jagged cliffs rising from the sea like the teeth of a sea dragon. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the strange twisted trees that lined the island's shore, their branches stretching out like skeletal fingers, beckoning him closer. "Land ho!" roared the bear, a mighty navigator with a spyglass in one paw and a gleam of excitement in its button eyes. The island loomed ahead, and despite the storm's rage, Captain Finn felt a pull deep inside him, like the ocean's tide drawing him toward destiny. "We're heading for the Island of Echoes," Finn declared, his voice as steady as the ship beneath him. The name alone sent a thrill through the crew. An island known in pirate lore for its ability to repeat the words of any who dared speak upon its shores. But it was also said to hold a treasure, a secret too powerful to resist. And Finn? He was no pirate to turn away from a treasure. As the ship neared the island, the sea grew even more treacherous, the waves rising like the backs of sea serpents, crashing against the dreamer with the force of 12 cannonballs. The ship was tossed like a toy in a giant's hands, but Finn never let go of the wheel, his determination as solid as the cliffs looming before him. "Lower the anchor!" he barked, and the stuffed rabbit and bear leapt into action, tossing the anchor overboard with all the strength their tiny hands could muster. The chain rattled like bones as it plunged into the depths, and the dreamer came to a halt, rocking gently in the shadow of the island. The storm raged on, but here at the edge of the Island of Echoes, the air was thick with something more than rain and thunder. It was heavy with mystery, as if the island itself were whispering secrets from the very rocks and trees. The waves lapped at the shore like the soft murmurs of forgotten voices, and the mist curled around the ship like ghostly fingers, beckoning Captain Finn and his crew to come closer. Finn stepped down from the ship's wheel, his boots thudding against the deck with purpose. His heart raced, not from fear, but from the electric thrill of what lay ahead. The island called to him, its secrets waiting to be uncovered, its treasure hidden beneath centuries of pirate legend. "Ready the rowboat," Finn commanded, his eyes gleaming with excitement as lightning danced across the sky. The crew scrambled to obey, their paws and plush hands moving with the urgency of seasoned sailors. As they lowered the small boat into the water, Finn stood tall at the edge of the deck, watching the island rise before him like a monument to adventure. "We sail to fortune and glory," he whispered. And with that, Captain Finn and his crew began their journey toward the island of echoes, the storm crashing behind them. But the real adventure just beginning. Chapter 3: The Island of Echoes. The rowboat cut through the mist like a shark's fin slicing through still waters, silent but menacing. The waves, which once growled and frothed, now lapped at the boat with eerie gentleness, as if the sea itself held its breath in anticipation. Captain Finn stood at the helm, his chest swelling with the thrill of impending discovery, while his crew rowed with steady determination. The island of echoes loomed closer, its dark cliffs jagged and sharp, like the teeth of a colossal sea monster lying in wait. Above them, the sky was a bruised purple, swirling with clouds that twisted like coiled serpents ready to strike. The air was thick, heavy, almost solid, pressing down on them like the weight of forgotten legends. It wasn't just a storm now. No, this island had a life of its own, an ancient pulse that seemed to beat in time with the rhythmic slosh of water against the hull. Each row of the oars sounded like a whisper, the echoes bouncing back from the cliffs, distorted as though the island was speaking in riddles. Captain Finn's heart raced like the wings of a hummingbird, thrumming in his chest as they reached the shore. The boat scraped against the sand with a sound like nails on glass, a shriek that made the hairs on his neck stand on end. His boots hit the ground with a thud, sinking into the wet sand that felt as cold as a graveyard at midnight. "Stay sharp, crew," he commanded, his voice firm as iron, but beneath the steel was a ripple of excitement, a spark of curiosity that no storm could extinguish. His stuffed tiger, ever the fierce protector, hopped out beside him, eyes glowing like lanterns cutting through fog, while the bear and rabbit followed, their silent determination as unwavering as a lighthouse in the midst of a hurricane. The island stretched before them, cloaked in a fog so thick it seemed alive, twisting and curling like the tendrils of an unseen beast. Every step echoed, the sound bouncing back from the cliffs in warped, ghostly voices, repeating their words, but never quite the same. Always softer, always just out of reach, as though the island was speaking back in its own secret language. Ahead, gnarled trees with bark as rough as dragon scales clawed their way toward the sky, their branches entwined like the fingers of giants who had long since turned to stone. The air smelled of damp earth and sea salt, with an undercurrent of something ancient, something that smelled of old shipwrecks and forgotten treasures buried deep beneath the sand. Captain Finn's eyes were sharp as daggers, scanning the path ahead. The map, etched into his mind as clearly as if it had been burned there by the sun, pointed them toward the heart of the island, where the treasure of the Thunder King awaited. But there were no clear paths here, no friendly landmarks to guide them. just the ever-present fog and the disembodied voices of the island's echoes. "Do you hear that?" the stuffed bear muttered, its button eyes wide with unease. The echoes were growing louder now, louder and stranger, twisting their own voices into a cacophony of overlapping sounds. It was as if the island were waking up, shaking off centuries of sleep and realizing it had guests. "I hear it," Finn replied, his voice steady, but his pulse quickening. "And we follow it." The deeper they ventured, the thicker the fog became, until it wrapped around them like a shroud, muffling their footsteps and dampening the air with an almost palpable chill. The island groaned beneath them, its ground uneven, like the shifting back of some enormous creature lying just below the surface. Suddenly, a clearing opened up before them, as abrupt as the eye of a storm. The fog thinned here, revealing a great stone archway, ancient and weathered, its surface cracked and worn like an old sailor's map. Vines, as thick as rope, coiled around it, their thorns glistening with dew, sharp as a siren's song. Beyond the archway lay darkness, a cavern that seemed to stretch down into the belly of the earth itself. "This must be it," Captain Finn whispered, his voice barely more than a breath. But still, the island echoed it back. "This must be it. This must be it." Fainter and fainter, until it disappeared into the blackness of the cave. The crew gathered behind him, their stuffed forms trembling with a mixture of fear and excitement. But Captain Finn's eyes blazed with determination, his hand tightening around the hilt of the wooden sword strapped to his side. The treasure was close. He could feel it, as surely as he could feel the storm still raging in the skies above. Without another word, they stepped through the archway into the belly of the island of echoes. The darkness swallowed them whole, the cave yawning before them, like the mouth of a great beast waiting to be fed. The air was thick with silence now, the kind of silence that feels alive, stretching out into forever. And yet, somewhere deep within, Finn could hear it, a distant rhythmic thrum, like the heartbeat of the island itself. The adventure was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. Chapter 4. Into the belly of the island. The cavern yawned before Captain Finn, like the mouth of an ancient slumbering beast, dark and foreboding, with its jagged stone teeth arching upward into the shadows. The air inside was thick and heavy, pressing down on them like the weight of 1,000 sunken ships, damp with the scent of moss and mystery. Every breath tasted of earth and salt, tinged with the unmistakable tang of secrets buried deep within the island's heart. Finn led the way, his boots crunching on the gravelly floor of the cave, which felt as uneven as a ship's deck during a fierce tempest. His eyes strained against the inky darkness, catching only fleeting glimmers of light that flickered across the walls like restless ghosts. The stalactites above hung like the fangs of some colossal creature, dripping with water that echoed through the cavern like the slow tick of a pirate's clock, counting down to something unknown. The crew followed in a nervous line, their stuffed paws silent on the cold stone, their eyes wide with the thrill of the unknown. The tiger, his stripes now vivid and wild in the flickering shadows, prowled beside Finn with a predatory grace, his whiskers twitching as if sensing the secrets that lay ahead. The rabbit hopped cautiously, its ears perked, every creak and groan of the cave setting its nose quivering. The bear trudged behind, its stout form steady, but its button eyes darting with unease, as if every corner might hold a lurking danger. The deeper they ventured, the more the cave seemed to swallow them, its walls narrowing and curving inward like the coiled spine of some ancient, forgotten leviathan. The air grew colder with every step, sharp as a cutlass slicing through the stillness, sending shivers racing down Finn's spine. He tightened his grip on the wooden sword at his side, its weight a comforting reminder that he was still Captain Finn, brave, daring, and unafraid of whatever dangers the island of echoes could conjure. Suddenly, the cave opened up into a vast chamber, a hollowed-out belly of stone so immense it felt as if they had stepped into the ribcage of a giant. The ceiling stretched high above, lost in shadow, while the floor beneath was slick and glistening with water that pooled like liquid silver in the dim light. Strange, shimmering crystals jutted from the walls, casting an eerie glow that bathed the chamber in a ghostly radiance, as if the island itself had veins of treasure hidden deep within its bones. In the center of the chamber, a vast stone altar rose from the ground, its surface carved with runes, as ancient and unknowable as the ocean depths. It stood like a sentinel, guarding whatever lay beyond. Something powerful, something that whispered of forgotten legends and untold fortunes. Finn's heart thudded in his chest, a drumbeat of excitement and trepidation, as if the very air around him thrummed with the island's heartbeat, pulling him closer. The crew gathered around the altar, their wide eyes reflecting the strange, flickering light. Finn stepped forward, his hand trembling with a mixture of awe and anticipation as he reached out to touch the cold stone. The surface was rough and ancient, worn smooth in some places, as if touched by countless hands over the centuries. Beneath his fingers, the runes seemed to hum, vibrating with an energy that thrummed through his skin, up his arm and into his chest. "Captain Finn," the bear whispered, its voice thick with wonder. This must be it." Before Finn could respond, the altar shifted. A low rumble echoed through the chamber, like the growl of something deep and ancient stirring from its slumber. The runes glowed brighter, casting long, flickering shadows that danced across the cavern walls like restless spirits. The ground beneath them trembled, and Finn stumbled back, his heart racing like the wings of a startled bird. Suddenly, the stone in the center of the altar cracked open with a sound like splitting wood, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, nestled in the heart of the island like a treasure waiting to be found, was a map. Its surface faded and yellowed with age, its edges curling like the pages of a long-forgotten book. It was no ordinary map, though. It shimmered with an otherworldly glow, as if the ink itself was made from the light of the stars, tracing the outline of islands and seas that no human eye had seen in centuries. Finn's breath caught in his throat as he carefully lifted the map from its resting place. It felt light as air, yet pulsed with a strange, powerful energy, as though it held the weight of the world's secrets within its fragile parchment. He unfolded it slowly, reverently, his fingers brushing against the delicate surface. The map glowed brighter in his hands, illuminating strange symbols and pathways that twisted and turned like the tendrils of the very fog that had led them here. The crew huddled closer, their eyes wide with wonder. The tiger's tail flicked with excitement, while the rabbit's ears twitched, sensing the magnitude of what they had just uncovered. The bear's breath came in short, excited puffs, its paws clutching at the edge of Finn's jacket as they all gazed at the map, awestruck. This is the key," Finn whispered, his voice barely more than a breath. "This map will lead us to the treasure of the Thunder King." And just as the words left his lips, the cave rumbled again, louder this time, like the roar of an angry sea god waking from a long sleep. The crystals on the walls flashed with sudden intensity, and the echoes of the island grew louder, repeating his words back to him. "Treasure. Thunder King. Treasure. Thunder King." Until the air itself seemed to hum with the promise of adventure. The ground shook beneath their feet, and the altar began to sink back into the earth, its ancient mechanisms grinding and groaning as it disappeared into the floor. The chamber shuddered, and from the depths of the cavern came a sound, a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the very bones of the island. Captain Finn's heart leapt into his throat. Whatever was guarding this treasure wasn't going to let them have it easily. Chapter 5. The Wrath of the Island. The very ground beneath Captain Finn's feet trembled as if the earth itself were quaking with rage, ready to split open and swallow them whole. The cavern, once merely foreboding, now throbbed with an ominous energy, pulsing like the deep rhythmic drumbeat of a monstrous heart buried beneath the stone. The air grew heavier, thick as syrup, clinging to their skin like the breath of a fire-breathing dragon just before it unleashed its fury. Captain Finn's mind raced, as fast as a lightning bolt slicing through a storm-blackened sky. His every muscle taut as a ship's rigging strained against a typhoon. Around him, the once stalwart walls of the cave shivered like ancient, crumbling bones, rattling and groaning as though awakened from centuries of silence. Shadows writhed on the walls, contorting like twisted serpents, slithering through the darkness, their jagged forms multiplying with every flicker of the eerie crystals embedded in the rock. "Hold fast, crew!" Finn's voice rang out, loud and defiant, though beneath it was the unmistakable tremor of excitement. His heart galloping like a herd of wild horses across a moonlit plain. His wooden sword gleamed in the ghostly light, gripped tightly in his hand like a lifeline, the only solid thing in a world that seemed to be crumbling around him. The ground beneath them shuddered again, this time harder, as if a giant beast slumbering below was rolling over in its sleep. Cracks spiderwebbed across the stone floor, sharp and jagged, splitting open like the surface of a frozen sea, breaking apart under the weight of a mythical whale. The sound was deafening, a cacophony of grinding rock and groaning earth, loud enough to drown out even the howling wind that suddenly whipped through the cave like the scream of a banshee. The stuffed tiger snarled beside him, its fur bristling as it crouched low, ready to pounce at whatever unseen force was causing the island to shake and shudder. Its eyes gleamed in the dim light like molten gold, wild and untamed, as if it were more beast than toy. A fierce guardian prepared to defend Captain Finn against any danger. The rabbit, quivering like a leaf caught in a hurricane, huddled close to Finn's leg, its long ears drooping with fear, but its little heart beating with silent courage. Even the bear, normally unshakable, looked uneasily at the cracks forming beneath their feet, its button eyes darting nervously as the cavern continued to groan like an old shipwreck caught in the grip of a rising tide. Suddenly, from deep within the belly of the earth, a roar erupted, a sound so fierce, so primal, it seemed to shake the very foundations of the island. It was the growl of something ancient, something furious, something that had been awoken from a sleep it never wished to leave. The roar echoed off the cavern walls, ricocheting through the space like cannon fire, louder and more terrifying with each reverberation. Dust and debris rained down from the ceiling, the crystals in the walls flickering and flashing like 1,000 lightning strikes trapped beneath the earth. From the dark abyss at the far end of the chamber, a shape began to emerge. Massive, hulking, and shrouded in shadow. Its form was indistinct, cloaked in darkness so thick it seemed to devour the light around it. But its eyes, those eyes, burned like molten lava, twin suns of fury that pierced through the gloom and fixed upon the intruders, with the intensity of a predator locking onto its prey. The creature's breath was a hiss, long and low, like steam escaping from the vents of a restless volcano, each exhale heavy with the promise of destruction. Captain Finn's heart thundered in his chest, his pulse quickening as he stared into the eyes of the beast. The creature was enormous, its silhouette towering over them, like a mountain rising out of the sea, its every movement slow and deliberate, the ground trembling with each step. Its skin, if it could even be called that, gleamed like wet stone, slick and dark, shimmering with an unnatural, oily sheen that made it look as though it had been carved from the very bedrock of the island itself. Long twisted spines jutted from its back, sharp and jagged as broken coral, while its claws, each one the size of a ship's anchor, scraped against the stone floor with a screech that set Finn's teeth on edge. The stuffed tiger growled again, louder this time, stepping forward with a fierceness that belied its size. The bear, too, puffed up its chest, standing its ground despite the towering menace before them. But it was Finn who took the boldest step, his chin lifting defiantly, his eyes burning with the same fire that had ignited in him since the beginning of this wild adventure. "Steady!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the deafening roar of the beast's approach. "We've come too far to turn back now." With a thunderous roar of his own, Finn raised his sword high, the wooden blade gleaming in the flickering light like a beacon of defiance. The island may have roared, it may have trembled, but Captain Finn was unyielding. He was the captain of this crew, the master of his fate, and no ancient, shadowy beast could stand in his way. The creature snarled, the sound vibrating through the air like the clash of swords. And then with a sudden, terrifying burst of speed, it lunged toward them. The earth shook beneath the force of its movement, the cavern groaning as the island itself seemed to roar in tandem with the beast. But Captain Finn held his ground, his eyes sharp and focused, his grip on the sword unbreakable. The air crackled with tension thick as storm clouds before the first strike of lightning as Finn and the beast locked eyes. Time slowed, the world narrowing to this one moment. A clash between man and monster, courage and fear, light and shadow. And then, with a wild, reckless grin that only Captain Finn could wear in such a moment, he charged forward, his sword held high, ready to face the beast and claim the treasure of the Thunder King. The battle had begun. Chapter 6. The Fury of the Thunder King. The cavern erupted into chaos as Captain Finn and the monstrous creature collided with the force of 1,000 storms. Each movement of the beast sending shockwaves through the cavern like thunderclaps booming across a tempestuous sea. The air, thick as molasses and humid as the deepest jungle, pulsed with an electric tension, crackling and sizzling as if the very atmosphere was alive with magic and menace. Every breath felt heavy, each inhale laced with the metallic tang of danger and the bitter taste of looming disaster. The beast's eyes, glowing orbs of molten fire, blazed with an ancient, unyielding fury. Its thick, sinewy limbs, rippling with raw muscle and power, crashed against the ground with each lumbering step, shaking the earth as if the island itself was responding to its master's rage. Its claws, vicious, jagged hooks of blackened stone, tore through the cavern floor, carving deep gouges into the rock with an ease that defied reason, sending sparks flying in every direction, like fire from a blacksmith's forge. Captain Finn stood his ground, his heart pounding in his chest, like the beating of a war drum, his grip on the wooden sword tightening until his knuckles turned as white as freshly fallen snow. The blade gleamed in the ghostly light of the crystals, which flickered and shimmered like dying stars, casting eerie, wavering shadows across the cavern. Each shadow seemed to twist and writhe like serpents slithering through the darkness, their movements unpredictable and ominous, adding to the overwhelming sense that the cave itself was alive, watching, waiting, ready to strike. The stuffed tiger growled, its plush fur standing on end, its glowing eyes fierce with unwavering loyalty as it prowled alongside its captain, each step as wasteful as a jungle cat stalking its prey. Its sharp claws dug into the stone floor, leaving small, perfect indentations in its wake. The bear, its usual calm demeanor replaced by a look of sheer determination, planted its feet firmly on the quaking ground, its fluffy paws clenched into tight fists, while the rabbit quivered at its side, eyes wide with a mix of fear and fierce bravery, its long ears twitching with every rumble and roar. Without warning, the beast lashed out, its massive, clawed hand sweeping through the air with the ferocity of a hurricane's winds. The sound of its swipe cut through the thick air like the crack of a whip, sending a gust of hot, stale wind rushing toward Finn. He ducked just in time, the claws missing him by mere inches, the force of the attack kicking up a whirlwind of dust and debris that stung his skin like a swarm of angry hornets. Finn's heart pounded faster, adrenaline surging through his veins like a flood breaking through a dam. His mind raced, sharp as a cutlass, as he calculated his next move, each thought flashing by like the lightning that crackled in the distant skies. He spun on his heel, his wooden sword raised high, and with all the strength he could muster, brought it down toward the creature's thick, stone-like hide. The sword struck the beast with a sharp crack, the sound echoing through the cavern like the toll of a great bell. The creature let out a bellowing roar, a sound so loud and furious it reverberated off the walls, bouncing back and forth like the howls of 100 angry wolves. Its fiery eyes blazed even brighter, twin suns of pure rage, and its massive form shook with the fury of a volcano on the brink of eruption. The ground beneath them buckled and groaned, great fissures splitting open in the stone floor, swallowing chunks of rock and debris into their gaping mouths. The air was thick with dust and the acrid stench of burning stone, the very essence of the island seemingly coming apart at the seams. Each crack in the ground glowed with an otherworldly light, like lava bubbling up from the heart of the earth, casting a hellish red hue over everything it touched. The beast, undeterred by Finn's strike, turned its burning gaze toward the altar in the center of the chamber. A guttural growl rumbled up from its throat, low and deep, vibrating through the cavern like the rumble of an earthquake. Finn followed its gaze and realized with a jolt of panic that the map, the map was still clutched tightly in his hand, glowing faintly with the same strange light as the fissures beneath their feet. "This is what it wants," Finn muttered, his voice hoarse from the dust and the tension thick in his throat. The creature roared again, louder this time, a sound filled with such raw, primal anger that it seemed to shake the very bones of the island itself. Its claws flexed, sharp as daggers, as it lunged forward, moving with a speed that seemed impossible for a creature of its size. The cavern shook violently with each step, the walls groaning and splintering as if they were ready to collapse under the pressure. Finn's eyes darted around the cavern, searching desperately for any possible way out. The walls seemed to close in on them, jagged and unforgiving, while the ceiling loomed overhead like the oppressive weight of the sky before a storm. The air grew hotter, thicker, as if the island itself was heating up, ready to erupt like a dormant volcano stirring from its slumber. The crew stood by Finn's side, unyielding, their stuffed forms filled with a bravery far beyond their cotton-stuffed hearts. The tiger let out a fierce snarl, its eyes glowing with a fiery defiance. The bear, unshaken by the beast's immense size, stood its ground, its paws clenched in tight, determined fists. The rabbit, though trembling, held firm, its tiny heart beating with a courage as vast as the ocean itself. With a deep breath, Finn raised the glowing map high above his head, its ancient, delicate parchment shimmering with the power of the stars. The creature froze, its burning eyes locked onto the map, its every movement stilled as if the very sight of it commanded reverence. The cavern fell eerily silent, the only sound the faint crackling of the island's fissures and the steady pounding thrum of Finn's heart. "This map leads to the treasure of the Thunder King," Finn shouted, his voice echoing off the walls, filling the cavern with a sense of daring and determination. "But you won't stop me." For a moment, the creature hesitated, its fiery gaze flickering between the map and the boy who held it. The air between them seemed to sizzle with tension, crackling with the energy of something ancient and powerful, as though the very island itself was holding its breath. And then, with a roar that shook the heavens and the earth alike, the creature charged. Chapter 7. The Storm Beneath the Sea. The air in the cavern became suffocating, dense as the weight of 1,000 shipwrecks buried beneath the ocean floor. The creature's charge was like a tidal wave, towering and unstoppable, crashing toward Captain Finn and his loyal crew with the force of nature unleashed. The beast's molten eyes burned brighter than twin suns at the heart of an inferno, its claws slicing through the thick, humid air with a sharpness that could cut through steel like butter. Finn's pulse raced, his heart pounding against his chest, like the relentless beat of war drums in the distance. Time slowed as the monstrous figure loomed larger, every detail of the beast more terrifying than the last. Its skin, dark as midnight and rough as volcanic rock, shimmered with a slimy, sinister sheen, each muscle beneath the surface rippling like the waves of a storm-churned sea. The cavern shook with each step it took, the ground trembling as if the very island quaked in fear of the ancient power it housed. Finn's mind raced, thoughts darting like frantic fish trapped in a fisherman's net. His wooden sword, though small and fragile compared to the hulking mass before him, felt as heavy as iron in his hand. It gleamed in the flickering, ghostly light of the crystals, catching each ray like a shard of sunlight breaking through the dark, ominous clouds of a brewing tempest. The blade seemed to pulse with an energy of its own, an unspoken promise of valor and victory whispered on the winds of destiny. "Hold fast, crew!" Finn called out, his voice ringing with the fierce determination of a captain leading his ship through the roughest waters imaginable. His stuffed tiger let out a ferocious growl, the sound deep and guttural, reverberating through the cavern like the distant roll of thunder just before the storm unleashes its full fury. The tiger's glowing eyes flashed like lightning, fierce and untamed, as it crouched low, muscles coiled and ready to spring at a moment's notice. The bear stood tall beside the tiger, its plush body puffed with determination. Unyielding as a mountain standing strong against the howling winds. Its button eyes sparkled with a fearless resolve, while its paws clenched into tight cotton-stuffed fists that promised protection against whatever chaos the island had in store. The rabbit, though quivering with fear, stood its ground, small but brave, its long ears twitching like sails caught in a gale-force wind. As the beast closed the distance between them, the cavern seemed to shrink, the walls pressing in like the closing jaws of a great sea monster. The jagged crystals embedded in the rock flickered wildly, their light casting long, twisted shadows that danced like ghosts in the periphery of Finn's vision. The shadows seemed to come alive, writhing like snakes in the dark, their forms twisting and stretching with malevolent intent, as if the very island was conspiring with the creature to stop Finn's quest. The beast let out a roar that shook the foundations of the earth. A sound so primal and powerful, it felt as though the sky itself might tear open and rain fire down upon them. Its jagged claws sliced through the air, sharp as a reef of razor-sharp coral, aiming straight for Finn. The force of the swipe sent a gust of wind barreling toward him, strong enough to lift the dust and loose pebbles from the ground, swirling them into a whirlwind of debris that stung Finn's face like 1,000 tiny needles. But Captain Finn was undeterred. He stood tall, a defiant ship braving the heart of a hurricane. His wooden sword gleaming like a beacon of hope in the midst of darkness. His eyes sharp and clear as the horizon on a calm sea, locked onto the beast with unflinching resolve. The earth might quake, the skies might rage, but Finn was steadfast. His courage anchored deep within the soul of a true captain. With a mighty swing, Finn brought his sword down, striking the beast with a force that seemed to shake the very air around them. The impact rang out like the clash of swords in the fiercest of battles, the sound echoing off the cavern walls in a symphony of defiance and determination. The beast recoiled, its roar of pain mingling with the rumble of the island, which groaned as if wounded by the force of the blow. Finn's crew sprang into action with a speed and coordination that rivaled the finest naval fleet. The tiger, quick as a flash of lightning, lunged at the beast's flank, its claws sinking into the creature's stony hide with a strength that belied its size. The bear charged forward with a roar of its own, its plush body crashing against the beast like a boulder tumbling down a mountainside, while the rabbit darted between the cracks in the floor. Its small form a blur of movement as it avoided the falling debris. The beast thrashed wildly, its massive form writhing in pain and fury. Its tail, long and serpentine, whipped through the air with a speed that seemed impossible for something so large. It lashed out at the crew, striking the ground with such force that the cavern floor splintered beneath it, the cracks spreading out like spider webs, threatening to swallow them whole. Captain Finn was not to be outdone. With a swift movement, he dodged the beast's thrashing tail, his reflexes as sharp as a sailor navigating the treacherous waters of a deadly reef. His sword flashed through the air once more, a streak of light in the gloom, as he aimed for the creature's glowing eyes, the very heart of its malevolent power. The creature let out a deafening roar as the blade struck true, its fiery gaze dimming for the briefest of moments. The light flickered, wavered, and then, like the setting sun, began to fade. The beast staggered, its movements sluggish, as though the weight of the island was finally bearing down upon it, crushing it beneath the unrelenting force of destiny. The cavern trembled violently, the walls groaning and splitting, as the island itself seemed to react to the creature's weakening state. Great chunks of rock fell from the ceiling, crashing to the ground with the sound of cannon fire, each impact shaking the earth and sending shockwaves through the already unstable chamber. The air grew hotter, thicker, as though the island was preparing for one final, explosive eruption. Finn's breath came in ragged gasps, his body exhausted, but his spirit unbroken. He stood tall, his eyes blazing with the same fire that had ignited the moment he had stepped foot on this treacherous island. His crew gathered around him, battered but unbowed, their loyalty as unshakable as the very ground they stood on. The beast, its once glaring eyes now dim embers, let out one final earth-shattering roar before collapsing to the ground with the weight of a fallen titan. The impact sent a shockwave through the cavern, rattling the very bones of the island. But this time, the rumble felt different. It wasn't the sound of anger or rage, but of relief, as though the island itself had been freed from a curse that had bound it for centuries. The air cleared, the tension lifting like the breaking of a long and terrible storm. The crystals in the walls flickered one last time before glowing steadily, their light now soft and warm, like the gentle glow of a lantern guiding a lost ship home. Captain Finn, his sword still in hand, stood victorious. The beast was defeated, the treasure of the Thunder King now within reach. But as he looked at the shimmering crystals, a new thought entered his mind. Perhaps the true treasure wasn't gold or jewels, but the courage and friendship he had discovered along the way. Chapter 8. The Treasure of the Thunder King. The cavern was transformed, no longer a dark and tumultuous battleground, but a majestic, breathtaking chamber bathed in an ethereal, serene glow. The fierce, searing heat of the battle had faded, replaced by a cool, soothing breeze that danced through the cavern like a gentle lullaby, whispering promises of peace and rest. The air, now fresh and invigorating, was tinged with the faint, delicate scent of wildflowers and ancient earth, an aroma that brought with it a sense of tranquility and renewal. The massive beast lay still, its once fiery eyes now dim and peaceful, its formidable form a silent testament to the fierce struggle that had taken place. Around it, the cavern's walls gleamed with a soft pearlescent light, the crystals embedded in the rock now glowing with a calming celestial radiance. Each crystal sparkled like a diamond in a sea of velvet darkness, their gentle luminescence casting a harmonious, otherworldly glow over the scene. Captain Finn, standing tall amidst the aftermath, surveyed the cavern with a mix of awe and reverence. His wooden sword, though now sheathed, still seemed to pulse with a faint, golden light, a relic of the epic battle that had unfolded. Finn's breath came in deep, steadying sighs, each exhale a release of the tension and exhaustion that had gripped him throughout the harrowing fight. his eyes clear and focused took in the serene beauty that had emerged from the chaos. Their previous fiery determination now replaced with a soft, reflective gleam. The cavern's floor, once littered with debris and the aftermath of the fierce clash, had been swept clean by an unseen hand. It now sparkled with a clean, almost crystalline clarity, the smooth surface gleaming like polished marble under the cavern's gentle illumination. The fissures that had marred the ground had healed, their jagged edges now softened and filled with a shimmering, golden dust that glistened like fine grains of sand on a sunlit beach. Finn's crew, exhausted but elated, gathered around him, their faces illuminated by the cavern's soft, calming light. The stuffed tiger, its fur now settled and smooth, looked up at Finn with eyes that sparkled with a proud, serene glow, its previous fierceness replaced by a contented, peaceful expression. The bear, its plush form slightly disheveled but unbowed, stood beside the tiger, its eyes reflecting a deep, unwavering loyalty and satisfaction. The rabbit, though still trembling slightly, was comforted by the warm, tranquil atmosphere, its long ears twitching with a sense of calm and relief. As Finn approached the central altar, he was greeted by the sight of the treasure of the Thunder King, revealed in all its magnificent glory. The chest, an ornate and resplendent relic, was adorned with intricate, swirling patterns that seemed to shift and dance in the soft light. It was crafted from the finest gleaming gold, its surface encrusted with a dazzling array of precious gems that sparkled with an intense, mesmerizing brilliance. Each jewel, a perfect, multifaceted gem, caught the light and refracted it into a kaleidoscope of colors that danced across the cavern's walls. With a sense of reverence and awe, Finn carefully opened the chest, revealing its contents. A treasure trove of glittering gold coins, exquisite jewels, and ancient artifacts that seemed to hum with a faint, magical energy. The sight was breathtaking, a feast for the eyes, with each piece more beautiful and wondrous than the last. The coins, each stamped with a unique and intricate design, gleamed like stars scattered across a midnight sky. The jewels, a riot of colors from deep, fiery rubies to cool, soothing sapphires, shimmered with a captivating, otherworldly radiance. The artifacts, relics of a bygone era, were ornate and majestic, each one a testament to the craftsmanship and artistry of the ancient civilization that had once inhabited the island. Finn reached into the chest, his fingers brushing against the cool, smooth surface of the coins and jewels. Each touch was like a caress of silk, the texture soft and luxurious against his skin. As he lifted a particularly stunning jewel, its vibrant colors reflecting in his eyes, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment and wonder, as though he was holding the very essence of the island's storied history in his hands. The crew gathered around the chest, their eyes wide with amazement and delight as they took in the sight of the treasure. The tiger let out a soft, approving growl, while the bear's plush form seemed to swell with pride. The rabbit, its small paws clasped together, gazed at the treasure with a mixture of wonder and gratitude. Captain Finn, with a heart full of gratitude and a soul brimming with pride, turned to his crew. "We've done it," he said, his voice filled with a deep, resonant joy. "We've found the treasure of the Thunder King." The cavern seemed to echo with Finn's words, the sound reverberating through the walls like the gentle chime of a distant bell. The air was filled with a sense of peace and fulfillment. the tension and fear of the earlier battle replaced by a profound sense of achievement and contentment. The treasure, with its radiant glow and timeless beauty, was a testament to the courage, determination, and unbreakable spirit of Captain Finn and his loyal crew. As they stood together, surrounded by the treasures of a bygone age, Finn knew that their adventure had come to a triumphant and fitting conclusion. The cavern, once a place of darkness and danger, had been transformed into a realm of light and wonder, a celebration of the courage and camaraderie that had carried them through their journey. The chest, now open and revealed in all its glory, stood as a symbol of their incredible adventure, a reminder of the trials they had overcome and the friendships they had forged. The treasure of the Thunder King was theirs to cherish, not just as a bounty of golden jewels, but as a testament to the indomitable spirit that had driven them to achieve the impossible. As Finn and his crew prepared to leave the cavern, the air filled with a sense of excitement and anticipation for the journey ahead. They had discovered not only the treasure, but also the true essence of their adventure. The bond of friendship, the strength of courage, and the unyielding spirit of exploration. The cavern's light dimmed gently as they made their way toward the exit, the crystals casting a soft farewell glow. The journey had ended, but the memories of their incredible adventure would shine brightly in their hearts forever. Epilogue: A dreamer's haven. The adventure had been vast and vivid, an odyssey of courage and discovery in the boundless depths of Captain Finn's imagination. But as all tales do, this one too found its way back to the gentle, quiet shores of reality. The cavern's mystical light faded into the soft, familiar darkness of Finn's bedroom. The majestic echoes of the island's secrets gave way to the quiet, soothing rhythm of nighttime at home. The once tumultuous sea of adventure calmed into the peaceful, steady breaths of a child deep in sleep. His room was still, bathed in the gentle glow of the moonlight that slipped through the curtains. Toys lay scattered across the floor, their shapes a testament to the day's play, now silent and motionless in the night. The wooden sword, once a fierce weapon in the hands of a brave captain, rested against the nightstand, its blade catching the faint light and reflecting a soft gleam. Finn, nestled under his covers, was a picture of peace. His features relaxed, his chest rising and falling with each deep, even breath. The storms of his dreamland adventures had passed, leaving behind the tranquil serenity of slumber. The door creaked softly as it opened, and Finn's mom peeked in, her presence as comforting as a warm blanket. Her eyes, filled with the tender love only a mother knows, rested on her sleeping boy. A smile touched her lips, her heart swelling with affection as she watched him, lost in his dreams. She stepped quietly into the room, moving with the care of one who knows the precious value of a child's dreams. Reaching Finn's bedside, she adjusted his covers, tucking them snugly around him, ensuring he was warm and secure. Her hand brushed lightly over his hair, smoothing it back with a touch as soft as a whisper. "Sweet dreams, my little adventurer," she murmured, her voice a soothing melody in the quiet room. Her gaze lingered on Finn, her mind wondering about the seas he had sailed and the treasures he had discovered in his dreams. Satisfied that he was comfortable and safe, she turned and tiptoed out of the room, leaving the door ajar just enough to let in a sliver of light from the hallway. It was a silent promise, a beacon of her presence nearby, ever watchful, ever loving. As she walked back to her own room, her thoughts were light and filled with wonder at the incredible capacity of her child's imagination. The world he had created, so rich and detailed, was a hidden treasure in itself, one that she cherished deeply, as only a mother could. The house settled around her, the quiet punctuated only by the soft sounds of a family at rest. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, a gentle hush that seemed to echo the peace of the evening. In his room, Finn stirred slightly, a soft sigh escaping his lips as he ventured deeper into his dreams, sailing once more into the night on the quiet seas of his imagination, where wonders awaited and adventures beckoned. And in that tender, fleeting moment between the realms of sleep and waking, the world was simple and perfect. A mother's love, a child's dreams, and the silent, watchful stars above. A tapestry woven with the threads of quiet nights and whispered lullabies.